It was supposed to be a fun, easy weekend, just a simple camping trip with a few friends to unwind and reconnect. But what started as a peaceful escape into nature turned into a nightmare that still haunts me to this day. The kind of nightmare that begins with a campfire, and ends with a question I'll never be able to answer. Before we get into it, though, please make sure you hit the subscribe button, like this video, and leave a comment below if you've ever had a weird experience in the woods. It was me, my best friend Matt, his girlfriend Rachel, and our buddy Jonah. We'd been talking about going camping for months, and when we finally found a weekend that worked for all of us, we jumped at the chance. The place we picked was a small, remote campground, no crowds, no tourists, just us in the woods. It was perfect. We arrived just before sunset. The camp was empty, and we had the entire place to ourselves. The first thing we did was set up our tents, crack open some beers, and start the campfire. There's something about a campfire that makes everything feel peaceful, right? The crackle of the wood, the warmth on your skin, the stars slowly starting to appear above. I don't know what it is, but that night, it felt too quiet. Man, I can't believe how empty this place is, Rachel said, poking the fire with a stick. It's kind of nice though, Jonah added, leaning back on a log with his feet kicked up. No people, no noise. Just us. We laughed, but even as Jonah said that, I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. It wasn't the kind of place you should feel uneasy in. But still, as the sun disappeared and the shadows grew longer, the woods around us felt like they were waiting. Watching. It was so quiet, too. Almost like the usual sounds of nature, the chirping of crickets, the rustling of leaves, had just stopped. In their place, a strange silence seemed to hang over the campsite. "What's up with you?" Matt asked me, noticing I was looking around more than usual. "You're acting jumpy." "I don't know, it just feels off," I muttered, trying to brush it off. But the words sounded stupid even as they left my mouth. Jonah didn't seem to notice. He cracked open another beer, and we all settled in around the fire, trying to enjoy the night. But then, just as the embers were beginning to burn low, I heard something. A soft sound, like footsteps, coming from the edge of the trees. Barely audible, but unmistakable. I froze, my heart thumping in my chest. "Did you guys hear that?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "Hear what?" Rachel replied, not looking up from the fire. "That, like someone walking out there," I said, my eyes scanning the darkness. Matt laughed. "Relax, man, probably just an animal or something." But I wasn't convinced. No animal made a sound like that. It was too deliberate, too rhythmic. I glanced around at the others, but they were all still lost in their own little world, unaware of the creeping sense of dread that was beginning to seep into me. "Let's just head to bed," I suggested, trying to shake it off. But the feeling didn't go away. We all went to our tents, and I tried to sleep. But I couldn't. Every rustle of the wind, every creak of the trees, sent my mind racing. I don't know how long I lay there, staring at the ceiling of my tent, but eventually, I couldn't take it anymore. I had to get out. I unzipped the flap and stepped out into the cool night air, hoping the walk would calm my nerves. That's when I saw it. At first, I thought it was just a trick of the light, or maybe my eyes playing games with me. But no, there was someone, standing just inside the tree line, barely visible in the shadows. A figure, tall, thin, and motionless. It didn't move, didn't make a sound. Just stood there, watching. I froze, my breath catching in my throat. "Matt," I called, my voice shaky. No answer. "Jonah, Rachel," nothing. The figure stayed still, and the air felt so thick, I could hardly breathe. I didn't know what to do. I stood there for what felt like an eternity, staring at it, trying to convince myself it wasn't real. Maybe it was a trick of the shadows, maybe it was just a tree stump, maybe I was losing my mind. But then, it moved. It wasn't a quick movement, not like you'd expect from someone trying to run away. No, it was slow, deliberate, like it was testing the limits of how close it could get without me noticing. My heart hammered in my chest, and my legs went weak. I didn't want to look, but I couldn't tear my eyes away. And then, snap, the sound of a twig breaking from behind me. I whipped around, but it was too late. Someone, or something, was already there. Before I could even react, I heard a scream. It was Matt. I turned to run back to the camp, but my body was frozen. I wanted to scream, but nothing came out. My feet felt like they were glued to the ground. And that's when I saw it again. The figure was now standing much closer, right at the edge of the firelight. Its eyes, I swear they were glowing. I had to get back to the others. Finally, I broke free from my paralysis and sprinted to the tents. I didn't care what was behind me, I had to warn them. I yanked open the flap of Rachel's tent, practically throwing myself inside. "Matt," I shouted, "we need to get out of here. Now." Rachel shot up in her sleeping bag, wide-eyed. What happened?" "I saw someone out there. Something's out there," I said, barely able to catch my breath. Matt screamed, "He's gone." I ran out of the tent, but by then, the camp was silent again. No screams, no noise. The fire was just a pile of smoldering embers. But Matt was nowhere to be found. I stood there, shaking, trying to listen. Trying to figure out where Matt had gone. Suddenly, from the darkness of the trees, came that same low, guttural growl. Rachel grabbed my arm. "We need to leave, now." We ran, not looking back. I didn't even know where we were going, just away from whatever was hunting us. We stumbled through the forest, not even stopping to catch our breath. And then, as we passed a clearing near the edge of the woods, I saw it one last time. The figure, standing there, just standing, watching us leave. It didn't move, it didn't speak, it just waited. We didn't stop until we reached the car. But even as we drove away, I couldn't shake the feeling that it was still watching, waiting, somewhere in the trees. We never spoke about that night again. Not directly, but sometimes, when I'm alone in the dark, I can still feel it, the weight of that thing, lurking in the shadows, always waiting for me to return. If you've ever had a similar experience, or if you've ever felt like something was watching you when you least expected it, let me know in the comments. And if you haven't already, please like and subscribe for more spine-chilling stories. Trust me, you won't want to miss what comes next.